Caregivers, have you ever felt like nothing, I mean nothing is going right? Well, cheer up and welcome to Dave the Caregiver's Caregiver radio program, where you'll learn how to avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout and how to survive the grief process. You know, with roughly 100 million caregivers in the US and Canada alone, that's about a third of the population. That means that everyone probably knows someone caring for a loved one. Join Dave and his guests now and every Wednesday at noon Pacific Time as they discuss avoiding caregiver burnout and surviving grief. So find a comfortable place to relax, kick up your feet, and prepare to feel better and to receive practical tips and tools that you can start using immediately to get you through today and every day so you can survive your tomorrows. But not just survive, but to live life fully and abundantly. Yes, you heard me right. That is a possible goal to achieve. And now, here's your host, Dave Nassani. From Los Angeles, a big LA welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, coming to you live globally through the world-famous Blog Talk Radio Network, as well as 7 or 8 other platforms, video and audio, iTunes, YouTube, podcasts, videocasts, you name it. Our goal here is to do our very best to help you avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout. It's a terrible, terrible thing, and it even hurts to say it. And we have an exciting show planned for you today with my lovely co-host, Adrienne Gruberg, that you hear chuckling in the background, founder of the Caregiver Space. Say hello, Adrienne.
Hello.
She always sounds so up and happy. Today, we will be interviewing Katie Nathan, General Manager of CaregiversDirect, a new kind of caregiver agency that uses a unique, affordable business model that is working very well here in Southern California area. So stay tuned. You do not want to miss this show. And I am your host, like I said, Dave Nassani, and this show is to caregivers of every single kind. And the one thing we know about caregivers is that they are caring and they're sacrificial. And they give and they give and they give until there's nothing left to give. And that's why they're very prone to burnout, because they tend to put everyone else's needs above their own. And I always like to say lately that we can learn something from the airlines, especially ones that throw us off when they overbook, because they tell us in the event of emergency, put your own oxygen mask on first before you attempt to help your loved one with their mask. And why do they tell us that? It sounds so selfish. I mean, think of a parent and their kid and the plane's going down and smoke's coming out of the wing. And I mean, can you imagine them asking you to put your mask on first instead of helping your gasping little bundle of joy there? I don't know if I could do it, but we're supposed to do it because they know that we will black out if we don't do it. And then you won't be of any good to anybody with anything. You'll both be goners. So we don't want that. Now, we also talk about grief and loss here and the devastating effects it can have on us. Anytime we suffer a loss of a girlfriend, loss of a spouse, loss of our health, we go through a grief process. It could take days, it could take weeks, it could take years or months. It might even take forever, but it doesn't have to. Everyone is different. But unfortunately, folks, there's only one way to get out of the grief process. You can't just get stuck in it. You got to go through it. You can't go around it, over and under it. You got to go through it. So move forward, and hopefully we can help you move forward with your grief and your loss if you happen to feel like, you're stuck. Hey, I want to take this time to thank my last week's guest, Denise Brown, founder of CaregiversDirect. She was amazing, wasn't she, Adrienne?
Yes, you great guest.
Yes, and you can hear that show and all our shows on our website, CaregiversCaregiver.com or DaveTheCaregiver.com, either one will work. And they have video and audio. And speaking of caregivers and books, I got to work on that transition. I'm so excited that our long-awaited third book is getting closer and closer to becoming a reality because we'll actually let you all know when you can begin the pre-purchase process. It's My Life Too, and when to say yes and when to say no in reclaiming your caregiver sanity. That's a great title, I think. And we're believing that by pre-selling 10,000 books to our massive followers, that could qualify us to possibly make the New York Times best-selling list. Why not? Something we can only hope for. And with God's help and your help, anything is possible. All right, enough of that. Very big welcome to Adrienne, my lovely co-host, and to Katie. Welcome to the show, Katie, and thank you so much for
Hi.
agreeing to this interview. So excited to
Well,
have you
thank you
here.
so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's our pleasure. So why don't you take a minute or two and introduce yourself? I like to ask my guests just who is Katie Nathan and why was she put on this earth?
Great questions. Starting off strong. I'm originally from the Midwest. I grew up in Indiana, and I've been out in Los Angeles for about 8 years. And I've had the pleasure of working for this terrific company for the past 3 or 4 years, CaregiversDirect. I'm one of the founding members and have been the general manager for quite a while now, and just really enjoying the opportunity to connect some really terrific caregivers with families here in Southern California.
Well, so I understand that let's just get right into this. Why did you start, or your associate actually started Caregivers Direct, right? You're the general
Yeah.
manager.
Yes. So the company was founded really out of a personal need. Our founder, Lisa Greer, her mom has Parkinson's, and she,
Mm.
when it became clear that she needed pretty much full-time care right from the beginning, Lisa, scoured Los Angeles, called all of the traditional agencies, looked online. She's really one of those women who, she's going to do her research and investigate all of her options. And in working with the traditional agencies, was really frustrated with lack of personal choice, first and foremost. Her mom had some pretty particular needs, and feeling like she kept running up against a wall of not being able to get the types of caregivers she needed consistently, not being able to get even the same person consistently. If her mom had a rapport with someone, there was no guarantee that she was going to see that person again. And then really just, the expense of it all. And especially when she found out that the caregiver herself was taking home, $11, $12 an
Right.
hour, at least paying 25, that really hit home with her, because her mom really did find a caregiver that she loved. And the conversation came up, and she asked, how much is the agency paying you? And she was shocked to find out that the caregiver was taking 50% or less of what she was
Less.
paying on an hourly basis. And again, Lisa is one of these women who just, when she sees a problem, she moves to solve it. And so wanted to start basically her own network, and really this network was created first for her own family and friends, but then it expanded beyond that to be a place where families could hire quality, vetted, experienced caregivers without having to go through an agency, while still having the same level of support, customer service, and again, vetting that you would get through an agency. So I kind of describe it as the
Mm.
best of both worlds, in that you have the
Yeah.
flexibility to hire directly, as you would with word of mouth or online, but also, that extra level of support that you would get through a traditional source.
Well, I wish I knew about you during my mother's dementia and all of the problems that we went with through her. She died a couple of years ago. How long have you been around?
We've been around for about 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. Find a
Yep.
need and solve it. What was her background before that all this business background?
Yeah, she and her husband are both entrepreneurs. They both had a couple of companies. She, came up in the studio system, worked for NBC, but, really just a tremendous woman, and, truly jumps to action when she sees a problem to be solved, and just really saw a tremendous opportunity to be able to help people in the same position that she was in.
Yeah. What a great business model. I mean, do you plan on expanding it to the nation or
We
staying
do,
here
yeah.
locally?
Yep. Our goal is to be nationwide, and the way our company is built is that, we are fortunate enough that we can scale really efficiently to be able to service, more and more families and more caregivers as we expand beyond California. We see ourselves being, kind of in the vein of care.com, which serves, the entire country, but again, kind of with that extra level of vetting, support, customer service. So kind of adding a layer of service on top of an existing caregiver network.
So,
Yeah,
how do you find your caregivers?
A few different ways, especially here locally. It's been really terrific. The word of mouth has been so strong, especially, the caregiver community is fairly tight knit. And so I think, once word kind of got out that our caregivers can set their own rates, it's very important to us that our caregivers are able to make a really strong living wage, to be paid on the books for tax purposes. So once the word got out that we were doing things a little bit differently, and that people were able to find jobs through our company, I think, caregivers would tell their friends, those friends would tell other friends. So word of mouth has been really strong for us, but we also have some relationships with nursing schools in the area. I've done a little bit of online advertising for caregivers, but really we've been fortunate enough that, once we launched, finding caregivers hasn't been a huge problem for us. We've been able to really recruit nicely, and I think it speaks to the service that we provide for the caregivers in addition to the clients.
Right.
See, Adrienne, this is the difference between government fixing a problem and entrepreneurs fixing a problem.
Right.
Caregivers have it within them. The entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurial caregivers, we can fix all the problems that we are having if people would just do it. And here's a perfect
Absolutely.
example. But government gets involved, it just makes it 10 times worse or 100 times worse. So kudos to you guys for doing that.
Thank you.
So other than what you've already mentioned, what else makes Caregiver Direct different than the traditional caregiver agency?
I really think it comes down to our team. We have a terrific team here in our office, and we work extremely closely with all of our caregivers and our clients. So, while we do have a network of caregivers that's available online, so, if you're looking for care, you can certainly search our database, in your jammies with a glass of wine, do the whole process soup to nuts on your own. But we also have a team in the office who, if you're a little less computer savvy, if you want some recommendations, especially, we see if you're coming into this for the first time, it can be really overwhelming. So we can basically hold your hand through the process, start to finish, send over, caregiver matches that fit what you're looking for, availability and specifications, and really work with a family to make sure that they're being set up with a caregiver that's a good fit for their needs. And we really consider ourselves a caregiver matching service more than a caregiving agency. Finding the right fit is very important.
So you work with the virgin caregiver and the seasoned caregiver as well, and both of them feel very comfortable working with you.
Well, we do require a certain level of experience for all of our caregivers coming on board, but in terms of clients, if a client is coming into this for the first time, we're more than happy to spend as much time as they need to walk them through the process.
So what's the? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there were different levels of skill that your caregivers had.
Yeah, there are. So we require 2 years previous experience, and that can be either in a facility, in the home, through intern hours, but a base level of 2 years of experience. But then from there, we have, a range of experience from, senior care companions, people who can, truly just provide companion care in the home. We have CNAs, home health aides, registered nurses, PT assistants. So, depending on the level of care that's needed, we certainly have a range of providers in our network. And I would say the most common, falls under the CNA level.
So is your model to go nationwide as a franchise to licensing your model, or to actually run it all yourselves?
No, the plan is to run it all ourselves. And, we are certainly interested in partnering with medical facilities if the opportunity presents itself. I think that could be a really strong partnership to be able to, service clients coming out of surgery or from an extended hospital stay. But really the intention is to run the company ourselves from the base of Southern California.
Cool. And what's the timeline in getting out of California? Yet?
Probably within the next couple of years. We wanted to really make sure that we had a strong base here in California. We do have one additional market at this time. We're in Houston, Texas. That was our first foray out of Southern California. So we are in California and Texas now. It's great. It's been terrific. We launched in Houston in the fall and had, just really strong interest right away. So we were really encouraged by that. And then from there, looking to expand pretty quickly over the next, I would say, 2 to 4 years.
I'm so excited for you. You'll get lots of support from us and from other caregiver sites. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of caregiver sites out there. A couple of years ago,
I know, the community is so terrific.
Yeah, yeah. And
so if
Go ahead.
Yeah. So
You're just
if
loaded with questions.
if the caregiver stipulates what their rate is, how do you guys do you have a flat fee for this, or
We
how
do.
does
It's
it
a
work?
flat Yep, it's a flat fee for a client to get started with our company. And, included in that fee is all of the caregiver vetting, knowing that every caregiver in our network has been screened, background checked, interviewed, ready to go. It covers all of our customer service. So it's a flat fee for us to get a client signed up. And then from there, the client is actually able to hire the caregiver directly. So the caregiver sets their own rate, and the caregiver takes home every penny that they make. We don't take a percentage of the caregiver's wage. We don't take a cut. And then the family has the option to pay on the books. We have a complimentary payroll service that most of our families opt to use, especially if they're hiring full-time or long-term. Makes sense to use payroll, certainly. But the family is hiring the caregiver directly.
So do you have a bookkeeping department to pay the caregivers if
We
they
do. Yep.
opt for that? Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
So how
Thanks.
many caregivers do you have in your network? Are you at liberty to say?
Yeah, we have several hundred here in Los Angeles and Orange County, and then a couple hundred in Houston. So we like to have a really deep roster before we open a new market.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
you're more referral, but you'll do it all if you have to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's amazing. She's very brilliant.
She is. Absolutely.
I think it's what time is it? Is it a good time to take a yes? We're time to
Yes, it's
take a break.
4:20.
It's a
Yep.
natural lull, so I mean, let's just do it. So don't go away. We will be right back.
One Arm, One Leg, 100 Words, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships is about Charlene, a stroke survivor. Back in 1996, Charlene was a healthy, normal, very active 52-year-old woman whose amazing talents resembled that of both a Martha Stewart and a Wonder Woman. But all that changed when she suffered a massive stroke that left her severely speech impaired and paralyzed on the right side. Who am I? My name is David. I've had the privilege of being Charlene's husband since 1975. We had a wonderful fairy tale storybook-like courtship that culminated in our marriage a year later. Charlene had just come out of a marriage where after 10 years, she received 2 black eyes and a broken nose by her former husband when he came home high on speed. Charlene believed in no second chances of any kind for abuse, so she left. Finding herself all alone in the world with her 5 and 10-year-old daughters, Cynthia Lorraine and Deborah Lynn, she started raising them by herself for the next 2 years. Then fate brought us all together. After falling in love with Charlene, Cindy, and Debbie, our love then produced Rebecca Elizabeth. We had a wonderful, normal life for the next 20 years. But today, things are very different for everyone. One Arm, One Leg, 100 Words, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships is the amazing story of a woman's fight to survive all that life had thrown her way. Everyone who knows Charlene is thoroughly amazed at how she lives day by day, month by month, year by year, and with a smile on her face and hope in her heart that everything is going to be okay. Her faith in God is her foundation in this hope, that everything happens for a reason, and what doesn't kill her will make her stronger. She inspires everyone who meets her. Her accomplishments since her stroke are very impressive, often making us normal people look like whiners and complainers. So pick up your copy of One Arm, One Leg, 100 Words, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships today. You won't be disappointed. Just hear what best-selling author Lynn Barrington has to say about it. If you think you have it bad, read this book. This is a beautiful, genuine story told from the heart. It's inspiring and easy to read. When you finish this book, you'll be able to look at your concerns in a new light. How about the reaction of 9-time Grammy and Dove Award recipient, the godfather of contemporary gospel Christian music, Andre Crouch? Charlene just won't let the promises of God go, and she has not let her circumstances get in the way of her faith. She's not just a survivor, she's more than a conqueror, as the Bible states. You'll be encouraged by her testimony, regardless of what you're going through. Available everywhere, but if you purchase your copy directly from the author's website, onearmonleg100words.com, Charlene and David will personally autograph your copy. Enjoy.
And we're back with Katie Nathan and Adrienne Gruberg, and we're talking about, what's the name of your place again?
It's Caregivers Direct.
Caregivers Direct. You know, sometimes I have a memory that reminds me of Swiss cheese, and every now and then I hit a hole. So that's kind of what happened back there. Some call it a senior moment, but of
I
course
think it
I know
happens to the best of us.
I
Of
know you're
course.
Caregivers Direct. Anyway, let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. Do families save money using Caregiver Direct? Now, I happen to know, for example, that if I were to go to any agency, the average price that they're going to charge me is about $30 an hour, and that's what I got to pay.
Yep.
So how, in comparison, and I'm here in Southern California, so you know this is apples to apples here. What is the average price? So you say it's always the same, right? Or they pay
It's
you and
actually
then they pay the caregiver.
Yeah, so the flat rate that's paid to Caregivers Direct to get started is always the same, but then the
Okay.
caregivers are able to set their own rates. So most of the rates average around $15 an hour. We do
Okay.
have some caregivers a little less. You know, caregivers who are registered
Very
nurses
reasonable.
and have expensive experience can charge a little bit more, but the average here in California is $15 an hour.
So how often do they pay you the referral fee?
Just once.
Just
how much-
once, even
how-
if you have to provide somebody else?
So it's
Yeah,
an enrollment fee to get started. It's a one-time $150 to get started, and then our ongoing to cover extended services, payroll, is a flat $10 per day of care. So while some of the agencies will charge, you know, $10 an hour on top of what they're paying the caregiver, ours is just a flat $10 a day any day that you use one of our caregivers. So if you use someone 3 times a week, it's $30 to Caregivers Direct. And that covers all of the extended services and, like I said, the payroll processing.
Okay.
So, for example, if someone comes, let's say we use them 3 days at 4 hours a day, that's 12 hours, and we pay them $15 an hour, we would pay you $30, right, for the week?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, well, it's still a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if, you know, my mother was very fussy. Oh, I don't like that person. She doesn't put the things back where I want them exactly. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yep.
foolish little things, but
Yeah.
sometimes we had to go through 4 or 5 to find the
Yep.
perfect one. How does that affect what you do?
Well, we see that all the time, and that's actually one of the reasons, you know, another reason why the company was created, because we recognize that that's, you know, it's a very personal thing having someone come into your home and they're there with your stuff and your spouse or your parent, and we recognize that, you know, not every fit is a good fit, and certainly not every caregiver fits every situation. So we, you know, clients are able to interview as many people as they like, try out as many caregivers as they like. It doesn't matter to us. You know, they pay the caregiver for the time that they use them, but then, you know, there are no contracts or minimums, and they can, you know, try out a new caregiver anytime they like. So, you know, again, kind of going back to this concept of the caregiver matching service, it's really the match itself is our priority. So we are happy to work with clients as long as they, you know, need or want to try out different caregivers until they find somebody that's, you know, exactly the right fit for their situation.
No penalty for doing that. It's the same
No penalty at all.
Question about, oh God, mind fog. Forget it.
She's
It'll
got
come
that
back to
same
me.
Swiss cheese thing I got.
Yeah.
I think it's contagious.
Only a little more advanced.
Yeah, just wait, Katie. One day you'll understand.
I feel like I'm already experiencing that, which doesn't seem quite fair.
Oh, I know what it was. So people can go online and find the list of caregivers that are out there looking for work, and
Exactly.
try and find someone that on paper, at least on screen, looks like a good match.
Yep. So actually, and that's a nice thing about our website, is anyone, you know, whether you're signed up with us or not, you can browse caregivers for free. So, of course, none of the caregiver's contact information or last names are provided if you're doing just a free search on the website. But you can kind of get a sense of, if you're in Redondo Beach, who's in Redondo Beach? Is there somebody that I feel like might be a good fit? So you can kind of sample our network before you sign up. And then once you have signed up, you have access to the password protected section of our website, which does have an ability to message caregivers. You can call them. All the caregivers' phone numbers are provided, so you can call them directly. And, we understand that a lot of people prefer that kind of autonomy as part of the process. Some people just would rather do it all themselves. So you can do, again, the entire process on your own if you want, or you can have us help you a little, or you can have us help you the entire way through, whatever works for you.
It's funny. It's almost like a dating website.
It is. I know. We always say that it's like Match.com, but without the romance.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes there's romance. So, you hear in the newspapers these, caregivers from Guatemala or wherever the heck it is, that they come into the home and they get all comfortable, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're being sued for unlawful firing because all of a sudden they became abusive. And so how does someone know that that's not going to happen? Because I'm sure a lot of people who call you have never ever considered bringing a caregiver into their own, because they're the caregiver, and nobody could do it as well as they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then, when things start getting a little out of hand and friends say, you should really try a caregiver, and it's a scary experience because, it's, oh no, a stranger, but you're taking away all of the obstacles from doing that. So how does somebody feel comfortable enough to make that first call? I mean, when you get that first newbie, what's typically going on in their head?
Well, I think you're right. And I think especially, coming from a place of most of the clients that we work with are acting as a primary caregiver or have been. And so, kind of going back to the idea of just in general, what a vulnerable and personal position you're in, having someone come into the home. And the way, the way that I see it is our screening process is really what sets us apart. All of our caregivers have been extensively vetted, thorough background checks. We speak to professional references personally. We interview the caregivers, and we really screen caregivers from the standpoint of, would I feel comfortable bringing this person into my own home? My grandmother had, care for the past several years of her life leading up to her death, and, seeing my own family struggle with finding the right person and really feeling comfortable bringing somebody in, I kind of, and I think all of us here in the office look at it as though, we don't want to bring anyone onto our network that we wouldn't feel comfortable inviting into our own homes. And we're really picky. We only accept about 10% of caregivers who apply to join our company. And, like I said, the level of experience that we require to join in the first place, and, the fact that not only do they have 2 years of professional caregiving experience, but we speak to those references, those previous clients, so we get a sense of, what is the full picture of this person before we allow them to join our network. And that's a big deal for me.
Yeah. So how big is your area? You mentioned Redondo Beach. I mean, how far north do you go, and how far south, how far east and west in California?
Yeah, we're fully across LA County. We also have some caregivers in Riverside, San Bernardino, Palm Springs, and then Orange County as well. So really, we've got the LAOC area pretty thoroughly covered.
Cool.
So are you going to expand to Northern California first, before you go?
Yeah, I think the plan is probably immediately to extend to, Santa Barbara, San Diego, to really cover Southern California as much as we can. And then Northern California, I mentioned that we're in Texas currently and probably expanding throughout Texas, Arizona as well, and kind of covering the Southwest is the plan for the time being.
So when you vet people, do you meet them? Do they come in for an interview, or so how would that happen?
Yeah, so we do the interviews. We've done interviews here in Southern California in person, but primarily via Skype video interview. But it is really important to us that all of our caregivers do have a personal one-on-one interview with somebody on our team. And I would say that kind of going back to the conversation about the agency, I feel like there's a great deal of trust that's placed in the agency. But in doing our own kind of recon, and certainly in Lisa's experience hiring a caregiver for her mother, it was really important to us that our screening process exceed that of even what the agencies are doing, so that people would really feel comfortable. Again, because not everyone is comfortable hiring online. It's kind of a new thing for a lot of our clients, and so we want to make sure that people feel that same level of trust that you would feel with a local agency, and that level of personal support as well.
Yes, I'm an employer, so I'm a better hire than most of my competition because they just don't ask the questions I ask. They don't spend the time. I'll turn down maybe 10 or 20 applicants before I find one that maybe others would hire. But every now and then I get somebody who I need to let go. So what is your complaint process? What if somebody's unhappy or they feel that one of your people crossed the line and needs to be fired? I mean, how do you handle the rotten apples that probably rarely occur?
Sure, and we're fortunate enough that we haven't run into this problem frequently. It doesn't happen often. But again, once you're a member of Caregivers Direct, we're here for you. So while our process is set up that the caregiver is the direct employee of the client, if there's a situation where having a mediator would be helpful, or someone to facilitate letting go of a caregiver, we're happy to help with that. And then, in addition, if we ever receive any negative feedback about a caregiver, or even early on in the process, if a caregiver is scheduled to come in for an interview and they are a no-show or a late, again, it doesn't happen very often, but if that does happen, we immediately remove them from our network. So we're, in addition to being very stringent about the screening process up front, we're constantly monitoring our caregiver database. We're in touch with our caregivers all of the time to make sure that the database that we do have is, they're not going up online and we don't speak to them again. We're constantly in touch with the caregivers to make sure that we've consistently got the strong database that we're known for.
Is it like one strike and you're out, or you give them a chance?
Half a strike. Well, no, of course we understand that every situation is different, and if we receive negative feedback, we always reach out to the caregiver to get their side of the story. Again, it doesn't happen often, but we're very picky about our caregivers, and our clients' trust is first and foremost in our minds at all times.
Now here's a question, because it was a criticism of my mother. She says, I can't understand them. Their English is not very good. As we all know that Filipinos, for example, are wonderful caregivers. They have a caregiver heart, and I'd be surprised if you weren't hiring Filipinos, but sometimes their accents can be pretty strong. So what if you get a lot of complaints about they're wonderful, I love them, but I just can't understand them? How do you handle something like that?
Yeah, well, we, like you mentioned, we certainly have caregivers who English is a second language, speak multiple languages, which is always a plus, because we have a number of clients who speak languages other than English as well. But if that's an issue for a client, we certainly understand that if there's trouble understanding the caregiver, it's probably not a good fit. So of course we'll work with the client to find a caregiver who's a better fit for that situation. And that's certainly a reasonable piece of feedback. If you can't reliably hear and communicate with your caregiver, it's probably not the right fit.
And the majority of your caregivers are not second speaking English languages, right? You still have
correct.
a
most of them
chunk
are
of
primary
Americans who speak English. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. My next question is, help us out here. Here's a new person. They're doing the free search. Maybe they don't know what to look for. Help them out. What should they be looking for as they go through picture after picture after picture? Give us some advice.
So for me, I maybe a little bit of a broken record today, but for me, the personality fit is really important. And one of the nice things about our website is, I know I've been on some of the other sites, and I know that it typically you're scrolling through a bunch of pictures and maybe a list of certifications or a calendar so you can kind of see when they're available. One of the really nice things about our website is that we actually offer the caregivers several opportunities throughout the profile to write about themselves at length, their interests, things that they enjoy doing with their clients, experience with an emergency, really just to get a sense in the caregiver's own words of how they would portray themselves. And I think that that's very, very helpful as well. So I think if you're on our site, I would suggest first and foremost, doing a search within, the distance range that you're comfortable and for the rate, get all the basics in line, but then reading through the profiles and looking for somebody that really resonates with you. I think it's the same thing as interviewing somebody. Once you get somebody on the phone or in person, you can kind of tell right away whether or not that person is going to be a good fit personality-wise. And I think the first step in that on our site is reading what they have to say about themselves in their own words. I think that goes a long way. And we also have feedback on our website from previous employers. So you can read through references, reviews, see what previous clients have had to say about the caregiver, and I think that goes a long way in narrowing down the right person as well.
Yeah, that's helpful. You encourage reviews, obviously.
Absolutely, yep. Every caregiver on our site has reviews from previous employers.
Do you use the 5-star system or just?
We do, yeah.
So you have caregivers with 5 stars. And
we absolutely have caregivers with 5 stars.
You might have some with 4 stars.
Yeah, 4.5 is very popular because they always say, well, nobody's perfect, but they're pretty close. So we have a lot of 4.5.
So here's an embarrassing question. How many stars does it take before you see red flags?
Oh, 4. If it's 4, I'm nervous. 4, certainly if it's under 4, we would be nervous. Yeah.
So your bar is very high. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I like her, Adrienne.
Yes.
All right, we're going to take another break. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Anytime we suffer loss, we grieve. And a lot of people don't realize what even the grief process is. But it could be 5 to 7 steps ranging from denial, I don't believe this is happening, anger, oh my gosh, I'm so upset this is happening, to a form of bargaining, how can I get out of this, to depression, which is a very serious thing because that often leads to suicide. And then finally, after you realize you have no more control over your situation and you're totally okay with the new normal that it brings, that wonderful, wonderful place called acceptance.
Being a caregiver takes a special person with passion and compassion. But even you can become a little burned out from time to time. The Caregiver's Caregiver radio show was developed to help you overcome obstacles, adversity, and burnout, as well as just having a place to rest, relax, and recharge your batteries. We've all been there, and you're not alone. Now, you can take the Caregiver's Caregiver with you. Get the top 25 radio shows in convenient form that plugs right into your USB car stereo or computer. Learn the techniques, tips, and encouragement we all need to better handle the day-to-day challenges. For around $1 per show, just $29.77. Get the credit card-sized USB card to have with you anytime you need a caregiver's pick-me-up. Just go to DaveTheCaregiversCaregiver.com and order yours today. Go to DaveTheCaregiversCaregiver.com now. Consider it an investment in you, and ultimately, an investment in them.
All right, we're back with Katie Nathan and Adrienne Gruberg. Katie is from CaregiversDirect. Got that?
Got it.
Katie, you mentioned before there's different categories of caregivers. I'm just thinking of my mother here. She needed just a companion, someone to talk to and be, have some human interaction. She also needed someone to do the cooking. At times, she needed somebody to come in and help her clean the place or actually do all the cleaning. Sometimes she needed someone to drive her to do errands. Sometimes, she needed somebody to draw blood or to do something that only a registered nurse could possibly do. If I missed any, tell me some of the other ones and how you determine what they need, and if you have someone who can do all of that stuff.
Sure, we do, absolutely. And, I think you really hit on it that so many of our clients, certainly that we see, don't necessarily need a caregiver with an extensive medical background. A lot of our clients use companion care really regularly. Transportation is definitely a big thing for us. All of our caregivers are required to have a valid driver's license and be able to transport clients to appointments for errands. That's something that we certainly see a lot. But then we have quite a few specialized caregivers as well. So, if you're going through physical therapy, you need someone to help you with your exercises post-appointments. We have caregivers who are equipped to be able to do that, caregivers with some OT backgrounds, and then certainly, like you mentioned, caregivers with some nursing experience. So the CNAs, home health aides, registered nurses, we really run the gamut as far as that goes.
So you actually have physical therapists and occupational therapists on your staff as well, or?
We have a few, primarily PT assistants, especially in the home to help with exercises. Probably not worth the money to hire an actual physical therapist to come in. But again, if that need is kind of help with exercises that are directed by a PT, we have some assistants who are more than equipped to be able to do that.
Yeah. Adrienne, I'm running out of questions. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask Katie?
I know when I've mentioned this before on the show, when my mother-in-law, who was living with me, needed a caregiver, and it was really a companion, because I was taking care of her and my husband at the same time, and when the time came that he needed me, I needed her to have somebody else there for her. Sure. And I wanted her to be part of the selection process. Yeah. So I wanted her to be able to interview a few different people. Does this ever happen, or
all the time?
It does.
Yeah, absolutely, all the time, and we're happy to facilitate that. Some clients prefer to do it over the phone. Certainly for convenience, that works really well. I always recommend in person if possible. I think you can tell a lot from meeting the caregiver in person. And certainly I always recommend that whomever is responsible for hiring, who is not always the client themselves, meets the caregiver in addition to the client. So the person who's going to be really working directly with the caregiver, and then the person responsible for hiring as well. And that's typically what they see, especially if you're hiring for a parent or a spouse, that person usually wants to meet the caregiver as well.
And how do you deal with resistance when the person who needs the caregiver really doesn't want a caregiver?
I know, yeah, and we do see that a lot. And the fact that we have companion caregivers on our site helps quite a bit. I think a lot of people, certainly our founder's mother, was in a place where Lisa always tells the story where her mom and her stepdad both really needed a caregiver, and neither one of them wanted one. And so the way they could get around it is, they would go to Larry and say, well, the caregiver is really for Dottie. We know that you don't need a caregiver, but it's for Dottie. And, of course, they would go to Dottie and say the same thing, and they were able to work it out that way. But I also think, it helps a little bit. We've seen clients who, maybe we'll say, it's, someone to come by a few times a week to play cards with you, take you to the movies, provide that companionship with the peace of mind of knowing that you also have somebody with some medical training and who's equipped to be able to deal with an emergency if that comes up. So I think that that's, a really nice way to approach it is, and going back to the idea of the personality fit and really trying to find the right match. I think, if you can find a caregiver that the client really looks forward to seeing and can forge a consistent relationship with, I think they're going to be a lot more open to having that care and having that person in their lives ultimately.
In vetting, I mean, do you need some caregivers who are bonded?
We do. So we have caregivers who are licensed and bonded, and our company is licensed and bonded as well. And certainly with the background check that we do, it's an extensive check. It's traced through a social security number, so we have federal, state records. the full picture on the caregiver.
It sounds like a great model. It really does.
Thank you.
We should invest in it,
I'm ready for you guys to come to New York. Yeah.
I know. Well, my family, like I said, is in Indiana, and when we started the company, it was when my grandmother was really going through a stretch of really needing care, and I was, pushing like, I think we should really open a branch in Indiana because it's just so needed. It's needed everywhere. So we're really happy to be able to provide the service and looking forward to providing it to more clients as we grow.
Mhm. It's certainly a growing field. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as Dave and I know, once you're in the caregiving world, you know that it's only getting more and more of demand for.
Yeah, and it touches everybody. I think Lisa realized the same thing when she started looking for care for her mom. Once it affects you, you start paying a little more attention to it, and she noticed a lot of her friends were going through the same thing, looking for somebody reliable who, was also affordable and, that really high quality care that they were looking for, that so many of the people in her life were looking for the same thing.
Yeah, it's so nice you're on the show because we get lots of requests for referrals all the time, and I don't know what to tell them because it's nationwide. So I just usually give them care.com, and I haven't even had them on the show. As far as I know, they haven't been able to come on. But I would much rather refer you when you were nationwide because I know you, I know everything about you. I'll continue to try to get them on the show, but if they don't want to come, that's their problem.
Yeah. Well, we're, like I said, we certainly respect what they're trying to do as well, but we're looking forward to being nationwide because I think that, like I said, the level of vetting and customer service that we can provide is certainly not matched by the other online services. So we're excited to be able to provide that to as many people as we can.
Are they also a referral service? Where they just refer?
They are. They're, and again, I don't work for the company, so I can't speak for them, but my understanding is that it's, more of a straight registry. So I think that the level of vetting they do is pretty minimal, if any. So it's kind of, sort of the Craigslist version of finding a caregiver in that, pretty much anyone can sign up for a profile. And I think they have people who can, help you a little bit if you have technical issues, but certainly not the way we structure our company is a little bit different.
Should I send people to you, like if they have a need in Indiana or Texas? Well, forget Texas. If they had, someplace where you're not yet, do you at least?
You certainly can. We're happy to try to help as many people as we can, and we have we've done custom recruitments in different areas. So if somebody is a little bit outside of our range, we're able to help them with a custom recruitment. So we are eager to help as many people as we can.
So how do you do that?
So it's, when we've done it in the past, it's typically if the client has a little bit of time, maybe a week or two before they actually need someone in the home, and then we can work to actually recruit for their specific need. And we can do this here in Southern California as well. So while I mentioned that we do have several hundred caregivers in the area, if we don't have the exact right fit for your need, we will recruit with you in mind until we find the right person for you. That's really our commitment to our clients, is finding the right person. So if it is someone a little bit outside of our service area, or when we've done this in the past, actually recruiting from scratch with a specific need in mind to be able to match the caregiver with the client.
That'll help you build your network faster, actually, just where the needs are.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to send everybody to you.
Please do. We'll take them.
Do you have any kind of liability insurance that you need to?
Our company is fully insured and bonded. Okay. We also recommend that, the family is the person who's hiring the caregiver. So we do recommend, checking your homeowner's insurance policy and making sure you're covered for a household employee, which quite a few homeowners insurance policies that's already in there. If not, you can certainly add a rider, which is pretty easy to do, but our company is fully insured as well.
Okay, the other question I was thinking of, do you have people who are willing to be live-in?
Oh, yeah.
And like some people have two shifts a day or 3 shifts a day?
Yep. We see all of that. And, you know, in that case, what often works best is the client can negotiate a daily rate or a weekly rate with the caregiver. Oftentimes, room and board is included in that rate. So while the caregivers do have their hourly rates listed on the website, the nice thing about the way we do business is we believe that the process works best when the client and the caregiver are able to work out the specifics themselves.
Together,
So, yeah, we can certainly help them along the way, but if you want to negotiate a particular rate with your caregiver or include room and board as part of the rate, you know, we are more than happy to facilitate that as well.
Yeah, because many times, you know, there's temptation for the caregiver to steal the client away from their agency, and then, you know, you get into technical things.
We want the client and the caregiver to be able to be together. You know, I know some of the agencies, I think there are some that won't even tell you the caregiver's last name because they're so worried you're going to steal them away. We want the caregiver and the client to be able to connect. You know, that's the way we feel like we want to forge a great relationship between those two people because ultimately they're the ones working together. So again, you know, it's just a different way of approaching it.
Right.
I wrote myself a note here when you were talking about different ways to get your loved one to receive a caregiver when they were resistant to doing that. And I call this one the Miss Daisy, driving Miss Daisy syndrome. You know, you just kind of bring them in there and you say, well, you know, and they sit there and they stare at each other for a month. And eventually they grow on each other, and eventually you know, it's kind of okay.
Yeah. It is funny,
Mom,
you know, and
I'm paying this person to be here. If you want to just look at her and watch me throw my money away, then go right ahead. You know? But it worked.
It is interesting though. We had a client call one time who, you know, I think she knew she needed some care, but wasn't ready to admit it. She was like, well, you know, I could use a caregiver for my cat. And we were like, okay, if it's a caregiver for your cat, that's, but, you know, wouldn't it be nice to have someone who could also help you out a little bit around the house? And, you know, it's funny how I certainly understand being hesitant to have somebody come into your home. So we work with that all the time.
In my mother's case, it was watering all her plants, you know.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Now, what if they're living in assisted living? Do you get many requests for people to come to the assisted living to be the caregiver, or as opposed to home?
Yeah, we do. You know, the facilities are a little bit different. Some of them won't allow outside caregivers, but, you know, going back to my own experience, my grandmother was in a facility, and it was a terrific facility, but she needed some additional care and attention other than what the facility was able to provide. So we can certainly provide caregivers who can come in on an individual basis to supplement the care that's being given in the facility.
You know, try twisting your audio cable. You're starting to get a little garbled there. Maybe a better connection would help.
Okay.
And then government assistance. Do you think you have information on, let's say, well, I can't afford this, but, you know, my husband's a veteran. I understand the VA will pay for caregiving. What do you know about any kind of government, local, federal, state assistance that will pay for that?
So we certainly hope to be able to do more moving forward. What we can do now is we have, here in California, we have a program called IHSS, in which the state will provide funds for a caregiver who is registered with the state through that program, IHSS. We have caregivers on our site who are registered with IHSS, so if you're looking for that type of care, we have caregivers on our site who are signed up with that program.
What does that stand for, IHSS?
It's in-home supportive services. So a client can apply to receive funds from the state, and then they're able to choose a caregiver from the IHSS registry, and we have caregivers on that registry who are also on our site. And then
help them fill out the forms and stuff?
Yes. Well, we can certainly walk them through the process of signing up with IHSS. Absolutely. And then in terms of other services or long-term care insurance, the way it typically works well with our company at this point is if the client is given either a stipend per month that they can apply for care, and then they can submit invoices for reimbursement. Our company can provide those invoices. We don't work directly with Medicare or Medicaid at the time being. You know, hopefully that's definitely a goal for us to be able to do. But certainly if you're an insurance provider or if you're working with a program that provides either a stipend or reimbursement for care, can certainly make that work.
Well, Katie and Adrienne, I can't believe how fast this hour has gone. It's been fun, and we've covered a lot of territory.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. And Katie,
Very knowledgeable.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
We could probably do a whole nother show sometime on different topic after you're, expanding your territory. Katie, how can you be reached if somebody wants to speak with you or do a free search, etc.?
Sure. So the website is CaregiversDirect.com, caregivers with an S, CaregiversDirect.com. And here in LA, locally, you can call us at 310-281-0028. We also have an 800 number on our website, and you can do a free search for caregivers on the website as well.
Adrienne, how can our listeners reach you?
Oh, it's Adrienne, ADRIENNE at the Caregiver Space.org.
You almost made a mistake.
I almost made a mistake. .org, and that's the website. It's the caregiverspace.org, and it's the Caregiver Space with many communities now on Facebook.
Yes. I mentioned that because I sent her an email one time, .com. She says, I didn't get it. I no! That darn .org. Okay.
It happens, yeah.
And again, a reminder that all our live shows become recorded podcasts and videocasts on our website, CaregiversCaregiver.com, or if it's easier, DaveTheCaregiver.com. And while you're there, take our short quiz to see if you're a candidate for burnout. And just for doing that, I'm going to send you my first book absolutely free, a $10 value. It's still getting rave reviews. One arm, one leg, 100 words, overcoming unbelievable hardships. My wife's amazing story. Katie, Adrienne, everyone listening, thank you again. Until next Wednesday at noon, may God richly bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver radio show. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at noon Pacific time and anytime afterwards on podcast to catch more of Dave and his tips to caregivers on avoiding burnout and surviving the grief process right here on the Worldwide Block Talk Radio Network. Goodbye.